Yesterday, we went over the best offensive archetypes in college football 27, and today we're going to be covering the defensive side of the ball, so you're all up to date on the best archetypes to go after when you're all recruiting new players. With players now requesting NIL and certain abilities taking more skill points to progress than others, I have weighed all the pros and cons of each type to give you a tier list of the best ones. So let me know your all's favorite archetypes to recruit this season in the comments below and what you all think of my list. Obviously, this is pretty biased as most rating systems are, but I did try to assess all of the best abilities, how cheap the players are with NIL, how easy they are to bring back, and how easy it is to upgrade them to be a very influential player on your roster every single season. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So for the first group we're going to be doing the defensive ends, and off the top we have the edge setter, and I'm going to be putting them in our B tier. They could have an argument for A tier. They're not bad at all. They have really solid abilities, and they're mostly a run stopping force. They don't have a lot of pass rushing abilities. They have a decent strength rating, which is going to be one of the two highest abilities or highest cost abilities to upgrade this year. So if they have a low strength, I would probably typically avoid them overall, just any player in general. And they also have a decent speed rating, but it's not at the top of the group. That's going to be reserved for your speed rusher. So those guys are going to be getting around the edges and putting a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks that way. The edge setters are more for the inside runs, outside runs, option stopping, all three of those. So if you're playing a lot of teams that do a lot of runs, this is a good pick, but that's really hard and situational. So that's why they fall in our B tier. Next up, we're going to be doing the gap specialist for defensive tackles. I did just say that we were doing the edges first, but since this is the same ability as edge setter, just for defensive tackles, it has all the same abilities. We're going to be doing this one first, and then we'll get into the rest for the whole defensive line. We're going to be doing this one in the A tier. They have all the same abilities, so they have the inside disruptor, outside disruptor, then option disruptor. And for defensive tackles, you're not going to be getting a ton of pass rushing done because you're typically going to get double teamed on blocks, or you're just going to be getting clogged up in the middle. But for stopping the run, these guys are exceptional. They're going to be able to get in there, blow up a lot of run plays, stop a lot of run plays for tackles for losses. Are very good in that. And I don't think they're S tier because they don't have elite speed or strength, so they're going to take a little bit more to upgrade in those categories. But for specifically at the position of defensive tackle and stopping the run, they're a very good choice here, and that's why they fall in our A tier. Next in line, we have the speed rusher specifically for defensive ends. We're going to be splitting all of these up into defensive ends and defensive tackles because they do have a little bit of a different rating. So for defensive ends first, speed rusher is going to be at the S tier. It's been on the S tier for the last couple of years. It is so good in getting to the quarterback with that quick jump. You also have pocket disruptor that gives them a little bit more stress back there. They're not going to be able to get off as clean of passes. And this year, passing accuracy has taken a dip for most players, and it's a little bit harder for guys to complete passes. So this is going to be even better than before. And you're also going to have the chance to get recoup, which is going to keep your guys fresher for longer. And for defensive ends specifically, this is going to be at the S tier. It's probably the best one you want to go for, and one you're probably going to be going for every single year. Now we have the speed rushers for defensive tackles, and I'm going to be putting this one at a C tier. Again, we just spoke about how the defensive tackles aren't really going to be a lot of pass pressure type of players just because you're going to typically get clogged up in the middle, so there's not going to really be a chance for them to get there. Obviously, you still have your elite guys that can do that, but generally for speed rushers, speed's not going to be super useful on the inside. I just don't think it's going to be great for you. They're going to be the weakest ones in terms of strength. Obviously, you'll be able to find some anomalies here and there, but on average, they have the lowest strength in all of the archetype groups. So you're going to want to avoid these guys specifically for defensive tackles, and that's why they fall in our C tier. Flip-flopping back to our defensive ends, we have the power rusher category, and this is one I don't particularly love, but it does get a little bit of a boost specifically because of Grip Breaker. So it's going to fall in our B tier. I would have it in the C tier if it didn't have Grip Breaker, but with how well the blocking schemes have been this season so far, it makes a little bit more sense to have that. They're going to be able to shed blocks a little easier, so they're going to be able to get to the quarterbacks. They're not going to be as fast as your speed rushers, but they're still going to be able to put a lot of pressure on them, especially with that pocket disruptor. That'll help a little bit as well. They're not going to be able to get around those tackles as quick and get to the quarterbacks and blow up plays. So it's not going to be as useful as your speed rushers or your edge setter. So I'm just going to stick them in the B tier for now. And going back to defensive tackles for power rusher, this one's also going to fall in my B tier. It's good, but not that good. It has, I think, the third best power in the group for defensive tackles. You have pure power at number one, then gap specialist. And I just don't think it provides you a ton of run stopping ability. The grip breaker is nice, but it's just not as useful on the inside, just because when you do shed one block, you probably have a second right there, or you're just going to get clogged up in the middle. The blocking schemes on the inside, at least this year, are very, very tight. You don't have a lot of holes like you had in years past, so there's going to be a little bit more issues trying to get through the middle with your defensive tackles. So this one's going to end up in our B tier. Next up is pure power for defensive ends. And again, I'm going to have this one a little bit lower maybe than some, and it's going to be in my C tier. I would typically avoid this one. Obviously, if you find an anomaly where they have good speed, I wouldn't mind getting it. But most of the time, they're going to have really low speed, the lowest in the group. They do have grip breaker, but if you just don't have the speed to get to the quarterback, they're going to be able to maneuver around you and get away. So it's not going to be as useful as you see in Power Rusher. And like I said, it is pure power, so it has the lowest speed, even lower than Power Rusher, which is just slightly above it. 1 or 2 to the ability of speed is going to be huge, especially since it's going to take a ton to upgrade it, and you're not going to have the chance to. So pure power isn't a complete avoid. It's not in our F tier, but it's definitely something I wouldn't target in most cases. But on the other hand, pure power for defensive tackles is in the A tier. With grip breaker, you're going to be able to get away from guys, but then you also have pocket disruptor and inside disruptor. So they're going to be able to disrupt the quarterback even if they don't get to them, which is huge. It's going to make it a little bit more hard for those quarterbacks to complete accurate passes, which is going to be a very big nuisance. But then it also has inside disruptor, which they're going to be able to get to the run game a little bit more than you see with the other ones. They also have some of the best power. They have the best power in the group. They have the lowest speed though, but again, for defensive tackles, speed isn't all that it is knocked up to be. Obviously, if you can have a little bit more speed, you want that, but I wouldn't take it over having the most strength or power in this category. So they're going to be our second A tier on the list. And now moving on to our second section on this list, and it's going to be the linebackers. All these are going to be for all 3 different positions, Sam, Will, and Mike. I think they all pretty much roughly work about the same at each position. Obviously, you may have a little bit of boost from here and there. And we're going to start with Thumper, and I think this is one of the best ones in terms of skills, but maybe not the best in terms of abilities. It has pretty good ones with wrap up and aftershot and blow up and hammer. So it's going to be doing a lot of wear and tear on the players it does hit. And grip breaker, it might be a good edge rusher at times, but it's not going to be the most exceptional. But it does have really good speed stat, which I think looking through a lot of the recruits I looked through, the speeds for linebackers this year has been shrunken a lot. You're going to have anywhere between like 81 to 86 to 87. You're not going to have, a lot of range where I've seen last year it's some down to, 75 all the way up to 92 pretty consistently. This year they've shrunken the range a lot, and obviously that'll adjust as you go up and down the star level. 2 stars aren't going to have 80 something speed, but in general you're going to have a 5 to 6 point variance. And while that is still significant, it's not as significant in years past. So it's going to fall in our A tier. It's very solid still, but I wouldn't, say it's the best, albeit you need to go after it every single time. They're the best ability group in the game. Next up, we have Lurker Archetype, and I think this is the best one of the group, so it's going to go in our S tier. I would go after this every single time. A lot of this is to do the fact that linebackers are notoriously really bad in coverage and zone and man in college football, and these Lurkers are going to have the best ratings in that group. They also have really good abilities like knockout, house call, robber, so you're going to be getting more interceptions, knocking down passes, which is really helpful when the QB goes robo QB on you. And they also have the best speed stat from what I've looked at. They have, I think, 1 to 2 points a little bit better than all of those. Again, that's not going to be, as significant as some of the other groups like the halfback group where there can be like 10-point averages differences, but it's definitely a very good group, and I have them in my S tier. Next up is going to be Signal Caller, but I don't think with the linebacker group there's a bad ability, but this is going to fall in our B tier. Not the greatest in the world. It has Workhorse, which isn't super useful, and it's kind of a ability that's in no man's land. It's a little bit between Thumper on power. It's a little bit between Lurker and Thumper on speed. It doesn't really have, it doesn't excel in one of those two. It's not bad per se. That's why it's in our B tier. I would still get it. It's honestly just depending on price. That's really where it comes down to the NIL points, and that's going to be why it falls in our B tier and doesn't get bumped up to the A tier. And for our third section, we're going to be going with the cornerbacks. And this one's going to be really focused on the speed stat of most of these guys, since that's going to be the most expensive one. The power is not going to be super useful. And we're going to be starting off with the field archetype. And again, I think this is the best one in the group. I think it's an S tier candidate. You have robber, which is going to be really good for secondary players. You have knockout, which is exceptional for secondary players. Blanket coverage, which is going to be killer for man to man, especially since some of these guys may come in with a lower rating. And you have ball hawk as well. And they also, in my testing, have the highest speed on average out of the group. So you're going to have to upgrade this less. They're typically going to be in the 90s, even at 3 stars. I've seen these guys get into the low 90s, which is going to be exceptional for smaller schools. So they're going to be one of the best ones to get at this standpoint. Next up, we have bump and run. And if you do a lot of press, this may be a little bit better than for you just because they do have jammer and they also have the best press stat in the group. So they're going to be really good at that. And also they're going to be a little bit better in man coverage because of that. They have blankage coverage as well, which is a man to coverage boost. But overall, in the whole group, I think this is going to be a B tier. I wouldn't necessarily avoid it if you have a good player here. I wouldn't avoid it. They just have a little bit lower ceiling in terms of speed stat coming into your program. So you're going to have to upgrade it maybe once or twice more. So that's going to be 20 to 40 more points you're going to have to spend just to get them up to par. And then thirdly, in this group, we have boundary. I think this is kind of just another one where it's kind of in the middle. It doesn't really commit to anything. And they're going to be in my C tier. I don't typically go for them. They don't have the highest speed. They do have quick jump. So if you blitz a lot with your secondary, they could be a good option here. But they also have jammer and blanket coverage. Again, I think bump and run is going to be better in that specific standpoint. You also get house call and ball hawk with that. Instead, you don't get that in the boundary tier, and that's why they're going to fall in C. I just wouldn't ever recruit them over a bump and run player. They don't have like a higher speed stat. It's pretty similar most times, so it just doesn't make a ton of sense. I wouldn't avoid them altogether. If you have 1 or 2 on your roster specifically for, you know, blitzing a lot with your cornerbacks, or if you find one with a really good speed stat, you could still bring them into the program and it would make some sense. Lastly, we have the zone type, and this is going to be in my A tier. I think it's really good. I personally love playing zone. So if you play a lot of zone, these are going to be better. Obviously, they're going to have the best zone coverage in the game. They do lack a little bit in man coverage, but they have really good abilities. They have knockout, they have house call, they have ball hawk, 3 very good abilities. I like using them. They have the second best speed stat. They don't have as good as field, so that's why they're not going to hit the S tier. But typically you're going to be able to find them in the high 80s, even low 90s at 3 or 4 stars. Obviously, those 5-star guys are going to get into the lower mid to 90s. But all in all, I think they're a very good one. And with how prevalent zone is in college football and how much the CPU likes to prompt you to call it, I think they are a little bit better for most programs than the other 2 below it. And then for our second to last section, we're going to be doing the special teams here as well, but we're going to be doing those at the end. We have box specialists, the safeties. And this one, I don't particularly love or care for. I don't think it's a complete avoid, so I don't think it's going to be in the F tier, but I just don't think it's going to be something that I'm going to go look for every single time. They are more of a blitz-focused inside. They're basically a linebacker that plays in the secondary, so think of like a Troy Polamalu. And so, like, if you like that, you're going to like that position. But if it's not something you use a lot, if you don't blitz your free safety or strong safety at all, then they're really not going to be super useful. They don't have a lot of coverage stats. They're going to be the worst in terms of coverage. They're not exceptionally fast because they're going to be a little bit bigger and bulkier than most of the other safeties. So I would typically avoid them unless you kind of find an anomaly and you can kind of find a guy that's for cheap. Then I would probably get them just to have them on the roster, but most times I would avoid them. These next 2 are going to be very similar in my eyes. The first one's going to be cover specialists, and I have them in my A tier. They're going to be the best, obviously, in terms of coverage and man-to-man in zone. And they're going to be the best for those typical 2 high, 3 highs where you're going to have those guys in the zone for most of the time. If you run a lot of 1 high, they may not be the best because they're not going to have the best man-to-man and they're not going to have the best press. They do have a really good speed stat, but it's going to be pretty on par with hybrid, given it is better than the box specialists, mostly because the box specialists are just bigger, bulkier guys. So it just makes sense that they're going to be a little slower. They also have knockout, ball hawk, house call, robber, and layout. So they're going to be really good at intercepting stuff, reading passes, getting those turnovers, and getting the ball back on offense. So that is a reason why they are in A tier, whereas the hybrid one is going to be just a step below in B tier. It's very similar. They have similar stats in terms of speed and strength and coverage. They're going to be a little bit better on the press, and in the box, they're going to be a little bit bigger than your coverage specialists. So that could be something that you look for. They're going to be a little bit better in the box with hammer, wrap up. They also have knockout. They just don't have the other ones that you would want to see for a secondary. So if you're running a lot of 2 high, they just don't really work that well just because they're not going to be as good in the zone coverage as you would see. But if you run a lot of one high, then these guys will be super useful for you, and you maybe want to bump them up to the A tier. Then the last two is going to be accurate and power. Personally, I think you can upgrade accuracy a lot easier. So I want to have power in my B tier, or sorry, A tier. They're definitely a get. Accurate, I want to have in C or F. I could really care less. They're going to be in C because they do have some usefulness in terms of chip shot. That is going to be better over some of the ones in power, given that deep range, mega leg, and coffin corner are all really good. And also coffin corner is better for punters, whereas accurate's going to be better for kickers. But even if you don't have chip shot, the mega leg is going to be huge for your kickers. You're going to be able to kick from way further away, and it's just a better in overall. And with that, that's our tier list for archetypes. Let me know in the comments what you all think. I think this is the best list. Obviously, this is very subjective by who plays the game and how you play the game. But if you're looking at like stats, NIL costs, and then return on investment in terms of abilities, I think this is a very, very good list. But obviously, you may change one or two. So let me know in the comments what you all think you would do or change my list. I appreciate y'all being here. I hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, I'll catch you all in the next one.